Where is this place? Su Mu looked at the fleeing crowd in front of her in surprise. Screaming and wailing, they seemed to have seen hell. He remembered that he was still watching the anime, Demon Slayer, a moment ago. Why, he came to this ghost place suddenly. The faces of the running crowd were all pale, as if something terrible was chasing them. Soon, a hideous, humanoid creature with strong limbs jumped up from behind the crowd, and a person who ran at the end was caught instantly. Sheila. Like a dismembered corpse, the human body was instantly split apart by its strong arms, and the dark red blood showered on this humanoid monster like a shower. He bared his teeth and opened his sharp teeth to bite. Large pieces of flesh and blood were devoured by it, and as the flesh and blood were devoured, his body seemed to be changing. Seems to be getting stronger. Suddenly, as if sensing something, the monster stopped devouring the food, and its scarlet eyes stared at the front, a young boy who was standing there in a daze. Quack. A terrified human imp. The monster licked its tongue, and walked quickly towards the boy. Su Mu stared blankly at the terrifying monster that was coming. What are these things? He didn't understand. The instinct of escape made him start to run backwards. Just took 2 steps, it just doesn't feel right. The steps I took were too small. He bowed his head. Really, even this body is not his own. Wearing ordinary linen clothing, with short legs and a frail body, it is completely the body of a teenager. At the same time, the memories in his mind also came one after another. He came to the world of Demon Slayer and became a very ordinary resident in this world. Everything is ordinary, the only thing that may be special is that he has a fiancée. However, his fiancée's family background is very poor, her parents are cold-blooded and ruthless, and she often has domestic violence. Several of his fiancée's brothers and sisters died directly under the violence of their parents. To the critical point and be able to live until now. The original host was too busy to take care of himself, so he watched the situation of his fiancée coldly. The real bottom dwellers of the world. He understood the world he was in and accepted the memories in his mind, but he was still a little at a loss. Who will tell him what happened? Why is there a ghost chasing behind me? Boom. His legs seemed to be caught by something, and he fell to the ground. Blood splashed all over his body, making him look extremely miserable at this moment. He looks up. The monster-like creature was walking, its scarlet eyes were playful, and he didn't mind playing with his prey before he died after he was full. Look at the monsters that keep coming. Su Mu fumbled around in a panic. A hard object was caught in the palm of his hand. It is a sword hilt. Pulled out of the bloody water, the moonlight shines, and the sword exudes an intoxicating halo. The blade is sharp. Looking next to it, there was a corpse lying there, the standard uniform of the ghost killing squad. Obviously, the owner of this sword is the corpse lying there. Look up and look at the monster across the way. A ghost to be exact. He lowered his head again and looked at his thin arms and legs. The situation in front of me, it's the rhythm that prepares him to die immediately after crossing over. Do not. Su Mu shook his head, he couldn't give up yet, at least, he wasn't dead yet. Thinking this way in his heart, he tightly grasped the hilt of his sword. Stand up slowly. Quack. The human kid doesn't want to escape, but wants to resist? The ghost's voice is full of teasing and teasing. Su Mu clenched the hilt of the sword tightly, but he could still feel his legs trembling. One moment he was living in a peaceful world, and the next second he was here, facing the ghosts. Palpitations, feeling of fear as if suffocating. Run away? He shook his head, faced the ghost, and fled. Obviously there was no way to escape. Call. Taking a deep breath, he gripped the Nichiren blades tightly, ready to fight to the death. Quack. Seeing the boy's actions, the ghost let out a cruel grin, and was about to make a move when he suddenly felt something. In the distance, in a dark corner, a little girl is curled up in the corner. At this moment, her eyes are as bright as stars, but she seems to have lost something and looks very stiff. What was lost was probably something called human emotion. And this girl happens to be the fiancée of this body. And when he saw the little girl, his eyes widened suddenly. Although the memory of watching anime before is a bit fuzzy. But the little girl in front of me undoubtedly matches Tsuyuri Kanao. At this moment, he realized it turned out that his fiancée turned out to be Tsuyuri Kanao. Su Mu didn't expect to meet Tsuyuri Kanao for the first time in this way. As he looked over, Tsuyuri Kanao's bright eyes looked at him too. He froze. Those eyes that are as beautiful as stars are like empty shells, empty and so stiff, as if they have lost all the emotions that humans should have. At this moment, he seemed to touch something unconsciously. A picture emerges in the mind. Poor family cold-blooded parents, he was often brutally abused. If he hadn't relied on his sharp vision, he would have been beaten to death. As long as she cries, she will be beaten by her parents, so she has to hold back her feelings. As time goes by, she gradually becomes less painful and no longer able to express her feelings. Everything Tsuyuri Kanao has ever encountered. Such a cute girl has lived in deep water and fire since she was a child. She has no childhood and no feelings. This is not what this girl should bear now. Unconsciously, he clenched the sword in his hand. At this moment, his heart suddenly felt touched. He suddenly wanted to change something, at least, to change the damn world in front of him. Ding. The strongest sword ghost system has been bound. Does the host accept the system? Something crisp and without any emotion sounded in Suemyu's mind, which made him feel excited. The strongest sword demon system, he whispered softly. This system carries the word, ghost, could it be? Suddenly there is a guess in my heart. Good. If you are willing to accept the system, you will become a ghost. The mechanical, emotionless voice of the system sounded, making his heart suddenly tangled. Looking at the ferocious monster on the opposite side, and at the girl who was still curled up in the corner, who seemed to be very dull. His heart seems to be touched by something. Suemyu never thought of herself as an angel who saved the world. But the scene in front of him forced him to make a choice. Choose to be a ghost, still continue to be human. Except, with only a little hesitation, Suemyu chose to accept it. Whether he wanted to or not, the situation before him had no choice. What about ghosts? What about people? In a world of ghosts like Demon Slayer, if you are at the bottom and have no strength, you never know if a ghost will suddenly break out and take away your long-established happiness. When happiness is destroyed, there is always the smell of blood. Instead of becoming a bottom class, he would rather choose to become a ghost. When Suemyu said, "accept," silently in his heart, some changes seemed to have taken place in his body. His heart stopped beating. The blood in his body also stopped flowing, and he could feel his body becoming more powerful. The originally dark pupils also turned golden. At the same time, 2 ghost horns appeared on his forehead unknowingly. Ghost horn. Moreover, at this moment, he seemed to feel that the Nichiren blades he held in his hand seemed to have feelings. Unconsciously waving the Nichiren blades in his hand, as if this knife is a part of his body. It seems that I was born with a unique affinity for swords and knives. Is this the sword ghost? Feeling the powerful force coming from his body, the corners of his mouth raised slightly unconsciously, and the golden pupils shone with light under his eyes. Similar. In front of him, the ghost who had just devoured several human beings looked at Suemyu suspiciously, and he felt the breath of ghosts from Suemyu's body. This made him very puzzled. Obviously, just a moment ago, this was still a human being. Why, suddenly, he felt the same kind of breath on his body. Ghost? Suemyu raised her head, looked at the other party, and whispered softly. But immediately shaking his head again. I am completely different from a creature like you who can't restrain itself from devouring flesh and blood and loses its nature. He said softly. I'm completely different from a creature like you who can't restrain itself from devouring flesh and blood and loses its nature. He said softly. Quack. We are all the same creatures, all ghosts. The ghost roared angrily. Its figure stepped forward like a cheetah. Its sword like sharp claws slashed towards the head of the little ghost in front of him. Ghosts have never been a herd thing. There can only be one ghost in a region. Although it belongs to the same kind, it has already put the little devil with thin arms and legs in front of him to death in his heart. At this moment, the boy's golden pupils opened. Palm flow Nichiren blades seemed to let out a happy sword cry with the movement of his palm. Choke slashed fiercely, creating a red ripple in the pitch-black night. The ripples passed by, as if they were hindered by something. They burst open suddenly, bursting out countless sparks, accompanied by the sound of metal impact. Clang, Nichiren blades collided with Ona's claws. This ghost's claws are as hard as the Nichiren blades. And before, the owner of this Nichiren blades, the members of the Demon Slayer squad who came to kill it, died under his sharp claws. The faces of the 2 people meet at this very moment, face-to-face collision. If they are human, they can smell each other's breath at this moment. But they all became ghosts without any breath. At this moment, Suemyu can be regarded as fully seeing the true face of this ghost. It vaguely has the face of an adult man, but because it has become a ghost, its face is extremely ferocious. The pupils of the eyes were white, and a large amount of mucus flowed out of the mouth, especially when the mouth was exposed. The ferocious ghost teeth gleamed indifferently under the moonlight. Looking at the other party, his eyes were indifferent. If he hadn't been able to block the evil ghost in front of him before, he could do it now, obviously because he became a ghost. At the same moment, information about the ghost in front of me appeared on the page. Name: Kanao no ghost level, elementary ghost, primary ghost, evolution ghost, lower string, upper string, ancestor of ghosts. Abilities: immortality, inferior, ghost claw, super healing. Cons: photophobia, wisteria, curse, from Kibutsuji Muzan, Nichiren blades. This is all the information about the ghost in front of me. Roar: damn brat, my own attack was blocked by Nichiren blades. This ghost was full of anger. From the moment it became a ghost, although it didn't completely lose its mind, it also became extremely sensitive emotionally. Flammable and explosive almost without thinking, the ghost figure suddenly took 2 steps back, then stepped again, approaching at a faster and more violent speed. Under the moonlight, the ghost's claw glowed with a deeper coldness. Although he was not close to his body, Su-mu could already feel the coldness emanating from the ghost's claw. With his current strength, fundamental can't resist. With such a judgment in mind, the corner of the boy's mouth showed a deeper coldness. If you can't stop it, then you can't stop it. With a slight arch of the body, he stomped his feet and met him at an extremely fast speed. Nichiren blades in hand against the ground as he walked, the tip of the knife in the ground drew sparks. Stupid brat. Seeing this scene, the ghost sneered. The little ghost in front of him might have lost his mind, so he didn't run away, and wanted to confront him head-on. Su-mu raised his eyes, golden ripples flashed across the ghost pupils. Next moment the two collided. Ghost claws go through his chest. Hey, kid. Go to hell. The ghost grinned, looked down at Su-mu with a sneer. For some reason, a strong pain emanated from his chest. It turns out that becoming a ghost does not give up the feeling of being a human being, and it also hurts when you get hurt. His face became a little ferocious, but at this moment, his 5 fingers clasped tightly on the handle of the knife. Go to hell. He spoke coldly. What? The ghost was slightly surprised. But at this moment, Su-mu's wrist trembled, and the Nichiren blades dragged on the ground slashed across. Crack. The sharp blade cut across the neck, and a head was thrown away. The power of the sun contained in Nichiren blades emanates from the neck, and finally spreads to the whole body. In an instant, the ghost's body is corroded clean. Only the stench remains. The boy knelt on the spot, covering his chest with his hands. It hurts. Why do you still feel pain when you become a ghost? It's really disgusting. He murmured. Ding, congratulations to the host for slaying a ghost and getting the ghost's claw. Ghost claw, which can make the palm of the hand completely ghost, and the palm of the ghost is extremely hard, which cannot be lower than Nichiren blades. A crisp sound was generated in his mind. At the same moment, he felt something change in his palm. It seems that with one thought of his, the palm of his hand can do it. Thinking like this, he stretched out his 5 fingers, and in an instant, a touch of gold appeared on his fair palm. This is the ability of that ghost just now, and as he beheaded that ghost, he possessed that ghost's ability. So is it just the ghost who was beheaded by him? We'll have this result. Think about. There is a feeling of thumping. If you have time, try killing another ghost. He whispered softly. Suddenly what came to mind? He turned his head sharply. The golden pupils were reflected in the dark corner, and a little girl was curled up there. Following his gaze, the girl moved back slightly. Purple eyes, slightly pink hair, perhaps due to long-term malnutrition, the hair looks a bit withered and yellow. He stepped forward, seriously looked at the girl. The dusty little face can vaguely feel a little cuteness from the childish little face with correct facial features. Double check. Only then did Su-mu confirm that the girl in front of her is the future Lihuiluo Kanao. I didn't expect my fiancé to be Suyuri Kanao. He whispered softly in a voice only he could hear. However, now, his fiancé is not called Suyuri Kanao, or in other words, his fiancé does not have a name now. Because, from birth to now, her parents have never given her a name. Fiancé, he yelled softly. The girl didn't speak, but raised her head and looked at him. She is like a mute. To be exact now. She is no different from dumb. Because, I don't know how long I haven't spoken. Even Shendu's eyes are a little empty, as if they no longer contain human feelings. To be exact, she is not very good at expressing her feelings anymore. Seeing this scene, Su-mu couldn't help sighing. He knelt down and gently touched the girl's head. Shall we get out of here? He asked, seeking the girl's opinion that this place could not stay for long at present. Perhaps, it won't be long before people from the ghost killing squad will come. Or maybe someone from the police station will come. No matter which one it is a very troublesome existence for a ghost like him. Today's era has long changed. It is no longer the era of ghost rule. Now it is the Taisho period, and technology has developed rapidly. Even ghosts may not be able to resist the roar of artillery fire. Even Muzan, the ancestor of ghosts, was almost buried. Yo detonated the mansion with a bomb. Therefore, it is very unwise to continue to stay here. The little girl didn't speak, but when his hand gently stroked her head, the girl's eyes seemed to flicker slightly. If his eyes were not sharp enough, he might not even be able to see them. When he didn't get an answer, he didn't hesitate, and hugged Lihualuo Kanao in his arms. As he gently hugged her, the girl's body visibly trembled, but she immediately regained her composure. For Lihualuo Kanao, the real world is dark. She received beatings from her parents since she was a child, which made her get used to submissiveness, and she didn't know what resistance was. Sometimes, I also thought about dying, but in the end I didn't have the courage. She didn't know when her suffering would end. Perhaps she was born to endure suffering. It's just that I always look forward to the warmth coming one day. But never what awaits her will always be her parents' beatings day after day. She no longer cries, because as long as she cries, she will be greeted by her parents' fists and feet. She also has to bear with her feelings, because feelings are really a luxury for her. Over time, it becomes less painful and less expressive. I no longer expect the warmth of this world to come to me. Sometimes she also thinks, what did she do wrong? All the suffering in the world is on her body. Now, the man behind her back, she recognized, was her fiancé. I didn't care about her existence before. Why? I suddenly looked at her with such gentle eyes today. Very warm feeling. The little hand unconsciously grasped the clothes around the man's neck. I'll be home soon. Sumyu said softly. Just saying these words, the girl on the back obviously struggled, it seems, for Lihualuo Kanao. Home is a terrible thing. Feeling the struggle of the girl on her back, Sumyu also suddenly realized something, and tightly grasped Lihualuo Kanao's hand. Don't worry, this time, I'll be with you, he said seriously. The girl's trembling body stopped suddenly, and then she quietly lay on his back, no longer struggling. Maybe, it's a habit of being submissive, or maybe, her fiancé's words gave her a little sense of security. For Lihualuo Kanao, even a little sense of security is a very luxurious thing, so luxurious that she tried her best to get close to it. Seemingly feeling Lihualuo Kanao's state of mind, Su Emu's mood is also slightly depressed, thinking of Lihualuo Kanao's childhood in his mind, and his mood is getting more and more depressed. Are there really such cruel parents in this world? He couldn't understand why some parents would treat their children like this. However, before taking Lihualuo Kanao home, he has to cover up. Involuntarily, he touched his headpair of ghost horns. Things that don't belong to people can easily expose his attributes. The figure jumped up and down, quickly jumped over a fence, and found a black bamboo hat in this family's house. Putting on the bamboo hat to cover the ghost horns on his head, he set foot on the way home with Lihualuo Kanao again. He wanted to see how a pair of parents could abuse such a lovely child as Lihualuo Kanao. The farther you go to the place where Lihualuo Kanao lives, the stench in the air becomes more and more intense, and some human feces can be seen in the ditch by the roadside. Obviously, the place where Lihualuo Kanao lives is a slum, and the environment here looks extremely poor. From time to time, in the dark corners of the contract, the screams of women can be heard, which are prostitutes who sell their bodies to make money. There are the cries of abused toddlers and the roars of bullies. The filth of the world flourishes in this slum. When he got here, he could obviously feel the girl's little hands holding onto the clothes on his back a little tighter. He stretched out his hand, and gently patted the girl's thin back. The girl's mood seemed to have stabilized a lot with the comfort of his palm. Soon, a dilapidated courtyard appeared in front of him. Kanao's home, here, lives in Lihualuo. Kanao's parents include her father and mother. He gently put Kanao down. For some reason, the girl's star-like but emotionless eyes. Now there was a palpable sense of fear. He stretched out his hand and gently held Lihualuo Kanao's little hand. The girl's hand was so small and thin, which made him feel pity. At the same time, an invisible fire spread in his heart. He patted the door with his hand. Who is it? With a constant roar came from the house. The door was pushed open suddenly, and a man with a swollen face appeared in front of Sumyu. Kanao's father. Kanao's father took a strange look at Sumyu, who was wearing a black bamboo hat, but immediately, His eyes fell on Lihualuo Kanao, who was holding Su Emu's hand. You lose money. Where did you go today? Almost instinctively, he raised his palm to beat his daughter. This seems to be a normal thing for him. Lihualuo. A flash of fear flashed in Kanao's eyes, and he didn't dare to dodge. He just instinctively moved his head to the side, praying to avoid the deadly position a little bit. Obviously, Lihualuo. Kanao was ready to be beaten. It had become her instinct. Or habit accustomed to parental violence. Only this time, the palm did not fall. A palm stretched out, blocking Lihualuo Kanao's face, and grabbed the big hand that was whipping him. Same moment a hint of indifference flashed across the golden eyes under the young man's black hat. The palm of the boy blocked the palm of Kanao's father. What are you doing? Why stop me from teaching my daughter? Kanao's father stared angrily at the boy in the bamboo hat with staring eyes, and tried to break free with his palm several times, but the boy's palm was like iron tongs. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break free. Living in a slum, you may not have good vision, but you don't lack the ability to perceive words and feelings. He clearly felt that the boy in front of him was not easy to mess with. Otherwise, he would have waved his fist and taught Su Mu a lesson. Su Mu lifted the bamboo hat, revealing her fair face. Kanao's father narrowed his eyes, and it took him a while to realize who Su Mu was. So it's my daughter's fiancé. He smiled lightly, but didn't care. Su Mu waved his hand coldly. Kanao's father only felt a huge force coming from his wrist. The whole person was pushed by this gravity and staggered back several steps, almost fell to the ground. Take me to your daughter's bedroom. He looked at each other lightly. This indifference made Kanao's father jump. You bastard. Be polite to your future father-in-law. Boom. With a loud noise, Su Mu threw out a punch, and a hole was punched out in the wall next to him. Call. Kanao's father and Kanao's mother, who rushed over, gasped, and looked at Su Mu with obvious fear. Standing under the moonlight, Su Emu's golden pupils glanced coldly at the couple, or things that were not worthy of being called parents, and repeated her own words. Take me to my fiancé's room. As his indifferent eyes swept away, the two of them felt as if they were being targeted by a scourge, and they shivered unconsciously. Not daring to say anything, he hurriedly led the way. When walking through the yard, a bald middle-aged man seemed to be startled by the movement outside just now, and walked out, just in time to bump into them. Master Toroya Ichiro. Kanao's father fawned on his face. Imotani Ichiro glanced at Kanao's father indifferently, then glanced at Su Mu, and finally landed on Kanao, as if looking at some goods, showing a touch of satisfaction. Is she your daughter? Yes. Mr. Ichiro Tomoya. Kanao's father wanted to say something, but the coldness made his hair stand on end. It was Su Emu's pair of golden eyes that stared at him again. For some reason, he was a little afraid of those eyes. It was really scary, and he felt like seeing a ghost. The daughter's room is on the right side. Kanao hastily pointed forward with his hand. Su Mu also ignored Kanao's father. As for the so-called Toroya Ichiro who stayed at Kanao's house, he didn't care, and took Kanao's little hand and came to Kanao's room. It was more of a doghouse than a room. Looking at such a bad living environment, his eyes were inexplicably dimmed, and he lowered his head, looking at Kanao, feeling a little distressed. Here, is there anything you want to take away? He said softly. He came here not only to see how a pair of parents could bear to abuse their children like this, but also to take away things that belonged to Kanao. He was going to take Kanao away. After all, he doesn't want Kanao to live in such an environment. Kanao stood where he was, without moving. Su Mu frowned, as if there was nothing Kanao cared about here. But it's also a small room like a kennel, and the things inside can be seen at a glance, and there is nothing at all. Shall I take you out of here? He squatted down, looking at Kanao's purple pupils with golden eyes. Will you come out of here with me? He squatted down and watched the chestnut blossoms fall. Kanao. The girl's star-like eyes have not changed much, as if it has always been like this. It seems that this girl has lost the ability to express emotional choices. Seeing this, he was slightly silent, feeling inexplicably sad in his heart. What kind of childhood did you go through to become like this, like a walking dead? I will definitely protect you and never let you get hurt again. He stretched out his hand, pressed it on the girl's shoulder, and said very seriously. As his serious words fell, the girl who had been silent all this time, who had always been emotionless, seemed to be slightly touched. At this moment, he faintly seemed to see a few seconds of hope in Lihualuo. Kanao's dead, lifeless, beautiful purple eyes. But that ray of hope only appeared for a moment, and then disappeared in an instant, as if it had never appeared. Perhaps, the girl's heart has long been closed, unable to accept the warmth from outside. In other words, I dare not accept the warmth anymore, because it is even more torture to lose it after feeling the warmth. He watched the chestnut flowers fall. Kanao, this girl with purple eyes as bright as stars but extremely empty, spoke in the softest tone possible. No matter what, please remember, I am still your fiancé. You will rely on me in the future, so, don't be afraid. He reached out and grabbed the girl's thin hand, ready to take Lihuluo Kanao out of here. Since there is nothing Lihuluo Kanao wants to take away here, then, this place of childhood that makes Kanao extremely sad. Or don't come again. As for Kanao's parents, that pair of men and women are not worthy of being called parents at all. Holding hands, Kanao walked out of the room with Lihuluo. At this moment, in the yard, Kanao's parents are chatting happily with the man named Ichiro Tomoya. I am very satisfied with your daughter, and I agree with your price. Ichiro Tomoya took out a pocket, and as Ichiro Tomoya took it out, the pocket made the sound of jingling coins. Kanao's parents looked at the purse in Udani Ichiro's hand. Their eyes were also hot. They almost said nothing, licked their faces and said, Master Udani Ichiro, don't worry. From today on, our daughter is yours. Whatever you want, how we deal with it has nothing to do with us. Su-Mu, who was walking out of the room holding Lihuluo Kanao's hand, heard the conversation of Kanao's parents, and her eyes became inexplicably gloomy. This pair of dogs fell in front of chestnut flowers. Kanao. Negotiate their daughter's price with their daughter's face. They should know that Toroya Ichiro is a slave trader and wants to sell his daughter just for that little money. Do they really regard Lihuluo Kanao as their daughter? Or, never have been? Su-Mu lowered her head subconsciously, and looked at Lihuluo with some worry. Kanao, after all, Kanao would be very sad if his parents talked about selling him as a slave trader. But surprisingly, Su-Mu didn't feel any emotion from Lihuluo Kanao. Even if she was sold by her parents, she wouldn't feel any sadness. She seems to have really lost what is called expressing emotion. Even if he was sold by his parents in front of him, he was indifferent and didn't feel the slightest sadness. I really want to kill them. Su-Mu gritted her teeth. A golden light glowed slightly in the palm of her hand, but she hesitated for a moment, then took it back. No matter what, they are both Lihuluo Kanao's parents. How to decide depends on Kanao, not him. But, looking at Lihuluo Kanao with empty eyes, she seems unable to make any decisions right now. Taking a deep breath, suppressing the agitation in his body, now, he can't deal with the parents, waiting for the future, when the chestnut blossoms fall. Kanao gets better, it's up to Kanao to decide. As Kanao's parents accepted the money, Yugu Ichiro also set his sights on Su-Mu and Lihuluo Kanao, who had just walked out, and finally, he stayed on his own cargo, Lihuluo Kanao's emaciated body. As a slave trader, his vision has always been good. Although the girl in front of him looks extremely thin, her face is gray, and her clothes are sloppy, but with his vicious eyes, he can still see the girl. Potential. A beauty. Moreover, it is a perfect submissive slave, a slave who will not rebel against its master. Whether such slaves are raised and played with by themselves, or sold to dignitaries and nobles in the future, it is a very lucrative business. Didn't expect to find such good stuff in a place like the slums. Yugu Yilong murmured, stepped forward, stretched out his hand, and was about to pull Lihuluo Kanao away from Su-Mu's hand. He had paid, the girl was already his slave. However, just as the hand was stretched out on the way, it stopped suddenly. Under the bamboo hat, the boy stared at him with a pair of golden eyes. Yugu Yilong was just about to step forward to hold Lihuluo Kanao, but just as he reached halfway, he stopped suddenly. Under the bamboo hat, the boy's pair of golden eyes were icy cold, which made Yugu Ichiro shiver unconsciously. There is a feeling of being watched by ghosts. Is this what I bought? Ichiro Yuguya pointed at Lihuluo Kanao. I have paid the money to her parents, now, he is my personal property. Yes. Kanao's parents also nodded at this time. Su-Mu glanced at Kanao's parents unconsciously. Facing his eyes, the two of them unconsciously took a step back. Even so, they still tightly held the money bag in their hands, which was the money they got from selling their daughter just now. He suddenly felt a kind of sadness that the darkness of human nature had degenerated to such a disgusting degree. Boom, he punched the wall next to him. Boom. With a muffled sound, his fist punched a big hole in the wall. Yugu Ichiro looked at this scene with some horror. Although a musket can break through the wall, it cannot be as violent as Su Mu. Moreover, Su Mu's destructive power with just the palm of his hand is obviously even more shocking. Imotani Ichiro backed away unconsciously. Now, I want to take my fiancée away, do you have any objection? He looked at Ichiro Tomoya lightly. No comment. Facing such a humanoid monster, how could Ichiro Tomoya dare to say the word, no? Let's go. He lowered his head and looked at Lihuluo Kanao, as if he was asking for her opinion. However, even though she caused such a big commotion just now, the girl is still like a doll, her purple eyes are empty and dim, and she can't see any emotion. Likewise, there will be no response to his comments. In just a short time, Su Mu seemed to have gotten used to Lihuluo Kanao's silent appearance. Without saying anything, he stretched out his hand directly, holding Lihuluo Kanao's little hand and walked out. Kanao's parents wanted to say something, but when they met Su Mu's golden eyes under the bamboo hat, they dared not say anything. That look is like a ghost, as if you stare at it for a while, the ghost will miss it. Master Toroya Ichiro. As Su Mu took Kanao away, Kanao's parents watched Ichiro Tomoya carefully. Ichiro Tomoya stared at Kanao's parents with some annoyance. Being stared at by Ichiro Tomoya, Kanao's parents shrank their necks, but their hands were tightly holding the money bag. He had already handed over his daughter, and the rest of the matter did not care about their affairs. It is impossible to hand over the money. This is the money they sold their daughter for. Humph. Yugu Yilong snorted coldly. In this land, people who offend me generally won't survive dawn. Kanao's parents couldn't help but turn pale. He naturally knew the implication of Ichiro Tomoya's words. As a slave owner who sells slaves, Ichiro Tomoya has many thugs, and even possesses advanced weapons in this world. Musket. It seems that their daughter's fiancé is going to be in trouble. Thinking of this in my heart, I was a little happy in my heart. Imotani Ichiro walked straight away, not planning to do anything to Kanao's parents. As for taking money from Kanao's parents, he didn't think about it. Because, there is no need to seize it, and within a few days, Kanao's parents will send the money out in the casino and send it to him, and even owe him a large sum of money. He really knows the character of Kanao's parents too well. Only when I think of the golden eyes of that boy in the bamboo hat just now. Yugu Yilong's expression turned ugly. He has been king in this area for so long, and no one has ever dared to take anything away from him. Although the boy just now looked scary, but after all, they are human beings. No matter how powerful a person is, can he still beat a musket? Holding Lihuluo Kanao's hand, I walked through the slums filled with strong stench. The world outside the slums is full of bright lights and bustling. Turning the head, it belongs to Lihuluo. The slum where Kanao lives is so dark, and there are only a few flickering lights, forming a sharp contrast with the outside world. Su Mu held the chestnut flower and walked forward by Kanao's hand. A pair of ghostly golden eyes scanned the surroundings. An indoor he stopped. She lowered her head and looked at Lihuluo Kanao. Her clothes were already sloppy and her face was dusty. Without thinking much, he took Kanao's hand and walked in. Come to a room. He raised his head and spoke to the innkeeper very calmly. The innkeeper glanced at Su Mu, and he could tell at a glance that these two people came from the slums. I'm really worried that they won't be able to pay for the accommodation. 100 yen. The boss opened his mouth, and at the same time pointed to the notice next to him. Thank you for not paying on credit, don't open your mouth. Su Mu didn't say anything. He didn't have much money on him, but he still had some money, so he fumbled around. The total value is about 300 yen. Stay for one night, and prepare a set of clean clothes. He pointed to Lihuluo Kanao, and at the same time took out all the 300 yen in his hand. Now he is really empty-handed. The boss nodded, didn't say anything, just handed over a key. C-size room, the third room on the left in front, the clothes will be delivered later. Su Mu didn't say anything, and led Lihuluo Kanao came to the room. He motioned for Lihuluo Kanao went to bed and had a rest first. But after waiting for a while, Kanao didn't make any move. He couldn't help lowering his head, looking at Lihuluo Kanao with some doubts, and said softly, why don't you go? Lihuluo Kanao is still like a marionette, his purple eyes can't show the slightest emotion, and he doesn't speak like a mute. However, this time, he pinched his clothes rarely. A worn-out dress, because it was in a slum, it had already been stained with filth. Seeing this scene, he probably understood something. Obviously, Lihuluo Kanao was worried that his clothes would stain the white bed in the inn. He was a little distressed, but also a little happy. The heartache is Lihuluo. Kanao. The joy is that Kanao seems to have a little bit of his own will. Nothing. He knelt down and stroked Kanao's hair gently. Perhaps due to long-term malnutrition and the poor living environment, Kanao's hair is a little withered and sticky. Apparently, Kanao hadn't showered in an indefinite amount of time. It's okay, it doesn't matter if it gets dirty. He gently patted Kanao's little head. Chestnut blossoms falling. Kanao's purple eyes blinked rarely. The spiritual gaze at that moment made Su Mu lose his mind, but this moment only lasted for a moment, and then he returned to being empty and lifeless. It made him wonder if he was wrong. Although it was just a fleeting look, Su Mu knew that he was not mistaken. A tiny crack opened in the girl's closed heart just now. It seems that for the first time, he is willing to accept the warmth from the outside world. He gently took Li Waluo Kanao's hand, and asked her to put it on the bed to do it. At this time, the waiter also brought hot water over. Along with the hot water, there was a neat set of girls' clothes. Take a shower. By the way, change your clothes. He squatted down and said softly to the girl sitting on the edge of the bed. However, after waiting for a long time, Kanao did not respond. I'm going out first, call me if something happens. He said softly, not surprised by Kanao's reaction. Ready to leave. Just stood up. A thin little hand grabbed the corner of his clothes at once. He couldn't help lowering his head, looking at the pale and weak hand of a girl who was pinching the corner of his clothes. He glanced at the girl who was still like a marionette. Although Kanao can't express emotion yet, but the girl has obviously begun to rely on him a little, and seems to be worried that she will leave her. He squatted down again, watching Lihuluo gently. Kanao. Hey, I won't go far, I will watch at the door and stay with you. The gentle words were like a spring breeze, blowing on Lihuluo. Kanao's face, making the girl's purple eyes seem to blink again. Wait until the girl's little hand gradually loosened. He just patted Kanao on the head. Take a good bath. Call me if you need something. After speaking, he walked out of the door and closed the door at the same time. When the door was completely closed, the boy suddenly raised his head, looking into the distance with his golden eyes. A ray of cold light flashed away. He raised his head and looked into the distance. After becoming a ghost, he became very sensitive to everything around him. You can clearly feel that you are being spied on by something. But he didn't look for what should come will come eventually, he just needs to wait quietly. Kneeling down and sitting at the door, he took out the Nichiren blades from his waist and took out a rag from his pocket. Wipe again and again. The soft moonlight and the light of the candlelight reflected each other, falling on the blade. The fiery red light of the sword carried some kind of deadly threat. Since becoming a sword ghost, he seems to have a unique affinity for swords. Especially when his fingers brushed across the blade, he could even feel a slight trembling between the blades. Wipe little by little. Yu Jian's connection is also getting closer. He has never studied swordsmanship, and he is ignorant of the so-called swordsmanship, but as he strokes the sword continuously, he seems to feel that he has comprehended something. Sword arm extension. In other words, it is already no different from your own arm. To some extent, it is already a part of the body. He wiped it over and over without stopping. As a ghost, he has boundless physical strength, so there is no need to worry about this. A long time he exhaled. Stand up. What should come finally came. He didn't know who was hostile to him, but since he wanted to kill him, he also needed to be prepared to be killed. That is it. With 5 fingers gripping the hilt of the sword tightly, the killing intent was approaching. Shesh. In the pitch-black night, dozens of arrows pierced the sky and shot towards him in all directions. Su Mu stood there calmly, under the bamboo hat, her golden pupils flickered coldly. Clenched fingers. Nichiren blades was unsheathed at this moment, accompanied by a trembling sound, and for a moment, his whole body seemed to be surrounded by a stream of red light. In an instant, the welcoming arrow hit the red streamer. Clang clang. There was a metal-like collision sound, and the metal arrows hit the Nichiren blades one by one, and finally fell to the ground. There were dozens of arrows, but none of them hit him. At the same moment, there were powerful warriors running with swords in hand. These people were strong, with ferocious eyes, and almost everyone exuded a sturdy aura. It can be seen that there are many murders. Almost in an instant, they culled towards him. What a big scene, he whispered softly. With a shaking of the wrist, Nichiren blades slashed across the fiery red horse, and lightly slashed across the samurai's neck. The first samurai who charged was holding his neck and shaking, but his body was only slightly on one side. The body of the samurai fell to the ground and landed on his toes. In just an instant, one person was killed. Seeing this scene, the other people were not afraid, but became more fierce, roaring, holding weapons, and continued to pounce on him. He raised his eyebrows, and his golden pupils under the bamboo hat were icy cold. The 5 fingers circulated, and the knife was almost in an instant. The blade cut across the air, causing the air to ripple, followed by the crisp sound of the sword. A few more warriors who came over were chopped off at the waist. At some point, a samurai walked around behind him, holding a knife in both hands, leapt suddenly, and slashed out in the air. He just walked around, his wrists shook rapidly, and under the moonlight, a red light shone. When he looked again, he saw that the samurai who had struck in the air had been cut in half with his sword, and a large amount of bright red blood spattered to the ground. One sword, one person in the blink of an eye. There were more than 10 corpses lying on the spot, and there was no living person here except him. And at this moment he raised his head and looked into the distance. Yugu Yilong looked at all this with a pale face, and with the support of several subordinates, he staggered back. "It really is you." He grinned slightly. "I should have killed you before." He walked towards Ichiro Omoya step by step, holding Nichiren blades in his hands. The tip of the knife slashed across the ground, and sparks shot out one after another. Shot. A fearful voice came from Ichiro Toroya's mouth. The lead bullets ejected from the musket pierced the air, causing bursts of howling. Blink, it is already close to the body. Holding the hilt of the sword in his hand, he slashed across the fiery red light. Clang, clang, clang. At this moment, the swung blade seems to be woven into a fiery red network, blocking the incoming lead bullets one after another. But the bullet is too fast. Moreover, his time as a ghost was too short, and he hadn't fully adapted to the strength of a ghost. There was still a lead bullet that passed by the fiery red sword light and hit his chest. The lead bullets bursting out from the musket carried a powerful impact, which made him stagger back a few steps. Bow your head. A finger-thick bullet hole appeared on the chest. Hit. Omoya Ichiro's face that had turned pale due to fright before was now flushed with excitement. No matter how powerful you are still human. There was a hint of sarcasm at the corner of Yugu Yilong's mouth. Many such people died in his hands. I don't know how many ignorant people who show their courage for a while, but can only fall down unwillingly in the face of firearms. Like this brave young man in front of me, the heart was shot, and death was not far away. He is dead. Yuya Ichiro showed a smug smile, but it also shocked Suemu's strength just shown. The bravery of a person has reached such a level that he can catch a bullet. It hurts. Suemu was covering her chest with her hands. This part was the part that was pierced by the ghost's claw before. It was healed with the ghost's super strength before, and now it was pierced by the bullet again. He didn't lose his sense of human pain just because he became a ghost. Keep shooting. Yugu Yilong gave cold instructions to his subordinates, because Suemu, he had already killed more than a dozen elite thugs, which made him heartbroken, and at the same time hated Suemu even more. Today, he must be killed. And at this moment, he raised his head. In the distance, more than a dozen dark muzzles pointed at him. Hey hey. There was a sneer from the corner of his mouth. He stepped on the ground with his toes, and his figure quickly entered the surrounding darkness. Bang bang bang. Buckshot pierced the air and hit nearby buildings with burning flames. Bang bang. A series of lead bullets flitted through the air and hit the nearby building dance, making a deafening sound. The boy's voice waved among the bullets, and several lead bullets almost passed by his cheek. Into the dark. Lose sight. The gunners were also a little overwhelmed. Just at this moment, a young man wearing a bamboo hat suddenly appeared in front of these gunmen. The gunmen realized that it was too late to shoot again. They only saw the golden eyes under the bamboo hat, followed by the raised sword light. In an instant, across the neck, blood spattered and his body stiffened. The head was thrown away, and the whole person also fell to the ground, making a heavy muffled sound. In an instant, the sword in his hand swung out continuously. In a short period of time, in the pitch-black night, only a fiery red sword light flickered, followed by a gushing of blood, dyeing the pitch-black night with a tinge of red. But for a short time, all of Yugu Ichiro's subordinates were all beheaded. Only Yugu Ichiro stood there blankly, watching all this with a pale face. Plop. Yugu Ichiro couldn't help but knelt on the ground, looking at the young man who kept coming with horror on his face. He couldn't figure out why he was still alive after being shot in the heart. Seeing the young man approaching step by step, at this moment, his eyes were full of remorse. How could he provoke such a murderous god? Forgive. Forgive. Just as the sound of begging for mercy came out, a sword had already been cut out. Puff, it was the sound of a sword cutting into flesh. Sumu easily chopped off the opponent's head. Standing in the middle of the pool of blood, the golden eyes of the young man under the bamboo hat flickered slightly. A long time. A slight sigh came out. Not long ago, he was just an ordinary good boy in society, and he experienced so much in a short period of time. Before he knew it, he already had dozens of lives in his hands. Shaking his head, he bent down and picked up some money from Yuguichiro. At the same time, he picked up 2 muskets on the ground and put them on his waist. Firearm is a good thing. It may be a lot worse to deal with ghosts, but it is a great weapon to deal with people. After packing up everything, Sumu also came back to the door. After such a long time, the chestnut flowers have fallen. Kanao should have finished taking a shower and changing clothes. Moreover, there has been such a big commotion in this inn, and it is no longer possible to stay for a long time. Knocked on the door waiting for Kanao's response. But after waiting for a long time, he still couldn't wait, which made him frown slightly. After hesitating for a moment, he made up his mind to open the door. The folded clean clothes were still quietly placed on the table, and the hot water did not move. This made him frown, and unconsciously looked at Lihuluo. Kanao. The little girl was curled up in the corner, following him in. She was looking at him with her beautiful but lifeless purple eyes. Why don't you take a shower and change your clothes? He asked Kanao gently. Kanao didn't respond to his inquiry. Sumu has adapted to Lihuluo. Kanao's current character, the current Kanao, is more like a puppet on a string, completely without his own thoughts. I can only help myself. Let me wash it for you. He said softly. Although there are differences between men and women, Kanao is just a child now, so there is no need to care so much, let alone, he is Kanao's fiancé. His inquiry did not get a response. He smiled helplessly, knelt down slowly, and hugged Lihuluo Kanao. The sloppy clothes were taken off, revealing the girl's petite body and abnormally pale skin. The body is frighteningly weak, almost skin and bones can be seen. On the skin, there are all kinds of scars and traces of being beaten. Seeing this scene, the boy's golden eyes under the bamboo hat couldn't help flashing a low-pitched annoyance. Trying to suppress the anger rising in my heart. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, it would be hard to imagine that there would be such cruel parents in the world. The viciousness of the human heart is sometimes more terrifying than ghosts. He didn't say anything, but gently used warm water to remove the stains on Kanao's body. In the future, no one will bully you, I promise. He said softly. The dull purple eyes of the girl in the bathtub blinked. In her limited memory, it has been a long time since she was treated so gently. Scooped hot water with a ladle and started pouring it on Kanao's head. Close your eyes. He said softly. Perhaps after not taking a shower for too long, Kanao's hair is almost stuck together, which is very difficult to wash and requires a lot of hot water to water. Whether it was in the previous life or in this life, helping people take a bath was the first time he did it. It seemed to be very busy, but it was finally done. When the filth is removed, the girl's thin skin reveals a bit of brilliance like beautiful jade, but the skinny and bone-like shape does not show any beauty. Put on clean clothes, and then dry Kariwaluo, Kanao's hair with a dry towel. Lihuluo. Kanao's form also completely appeared in front of him. The dusty little face has been washed clean, the facial features are delicate, and the skin is like ceramics. It is hard to imagine that a person's skin can be so delicate. Only long-term malnutrition, coupled with the beatings of her parents, the girl's figure is too thin, her skin is abnormally pale, and her shriveled body greatly reduces the girl's charm. Even so, it can be seen that the future Lihuluo Kanao is definitely a beauty. Seeing the brand new Lihuluo Kanao, a gentle smile appeared on the corner of Suemu's mouth. Rubbed Liwaluo Kanao's head, perhaps, because of washing her hair, the girl's hair looked much smoother, although it was still a bit dull. We should go. He said softly that there was such a commotion in the inn, it would not be suitable to stay any longer. If it wasn't for Lihuluo Kanao taking a bath, he would have taken Kanao away long ago. As he said, he didn't expect any reaction from Kanao. He naturally took Kanao's little hand and prepared to leave. Only immediately he froze. The girl's footsteps didn't seem to keep up, and he brought a lot of resistance when he led Kanao away. Turning around with some doubts, the girl's purple eyes looked at him, and then, in his shocked eyes, Kanao slowly stretched out his little finger and pointed to his chest. He looked down. That was the place that was hit by musket bullets before, and that piece of clothes had already been wet by the bright red blood, making it look a little scary. Turn out to be its Lihuluo. Kanao is worried about his body. Looking at the girl who was still like a marionette, Su Mu felt a warm current flow through her heart. Warm. He stretched out his hand, touched the girl's head, and said half-jokingly, "I'm a ghost, this injury is fine." He doesn't care whether Kanao understands or not, he is just a little happy now. The closed world in Kanao's heart seemed to be opened again. Maybe, it won't take long. Lihuluo. Kanao will also restore the youth and vitality that a young girl should have at her age. Because, that's what Lihuluo, Kanao should be like. Leaving from the inn, far away, he only turned back. I could vaguely see a large number of people from the police station driving to the inn where the accident happened. After all, there was too much noise there at night. Wearing a bamboo hat, he was walking down the street holding Kanao's hand. The girl's expression still looked dull and indifferent, as if she would never have any emotional fluctuations. Will not express any opinions, nor express their own ideas. It seems that he only knows to follow him numbly. If it wasn't for being able to faintly hear the girl's breathing, Su Mu would almost have thought that she was leading a ghost. But he is a ghost. It seemed a bit strange for a ghost to walk among the crowd. However, with the cover of the bamboo hat, it is not easy to be discovered. Suddenly seems to feel something, he turned his head sharply. In the crowd, two girls in ghost slaying team followed him silently. The two girls are somewhat similar, but there is a big difference in temperament. One looks very gentle with a smile on his face, while the other is serious and serious. One is taller and the other is shorter. The taller girl has pink-purple eyes, long black hair reaching to her waist, and emerald green kochu barrettes with pink edges on both sides of her hair. Wearing a standard ghost killing squad uniform, covered with colorful butterfly pattern feathers. The shorter girl has short hair, the same purple eyes, purple hair tips, curly hairstyle, and also wears the uniform of the Ghost Slayer squad. With just one glance, he knew who the two were. Current style Kochu Kanae, future bug pillar Kochu Shinobu. Now they are all members of the ghost killing squad. Seeing the two of them staring at him all the time, it is obvious that they are here for him. But when you think about it, it's not surprising that the Kochu sisters are here. According to the plot, the Kochu sisters should appear in a nearby area to perform tasks. According to the development of the plot, the two will rescue Kanao, who is being dragged by a rope by the human trafficker Ichiro Tomoya, and finally rescue Kanao and adopt Kanao as his stepson. Kochu Kanae and Kochu Shinobu obviously found him, but, because of some scruples, they didn't shoot him. The golden eyes under the bamboo hat looked around. Ordinary people who keep walking apparently. Kochu Kanae and Kochu Shinobu were worried that fighting here would affect these ordinary people. "Sister, that ghost seems to have spotted us." Kochu Shinobu squinted his purple eyes, and his serious and delicate face was full of murderous intent. Kochu Kanae turned his head and looked at his sister. She could clearly see the burning anger and hatred in her younger sister's ninja eyes, and she naturally knew that what her younger sister wanted to do was probably to use Nichiren blades to chop off the neck of the ghost in front of her. She couldn't help stretching out her hand gently, and rubbed her sister's head. What happened back then had already left a deep shadow in her heart. Not only the younger sister, but even she couldn't forget that scene. After all, they were supposed to be like other normal children, surrounded by their parents' love, living a carefree and happy life. Only all these good things were destroyed by a ghost. Kochu Kanae's eyes unconsciously fell on the ghost in front, who was holding a human girl by the hand. Why would a ghost lead a human girl? There was a hint of curiosity in the pink-purple eyes. Looking at it again, I always feel that this ghost is a little different. Kochu Kanae spoke softly, his voice was like the warm spring sun, gentle everywhere. Elder sister, Kochu Shinobu was a bit offended, but looking at his sister's eyes, he could only turn his head and sulk. "Sister, you are always so gentle. Even if you were gentle with ghosts." Kochu Kanae was silent for a while, just stroking his sister's head, and said softly, "Ghosts were the same people as us in the first place. But, he has turned into a ghost." Kochu Shinobu likes her sister's gentleness very much, but also hates her sister's gentleness. She even maintains sympathy for ghosts and sisters. In case, this ghost is different. Kochu Kanae shook his head. "I think, as a member of the ghost killing team, ghost hunting should not only save the people the ghosts want to kill, but also free the ghosts from the cause and effect of sorrow." Kochu Shinobu was even more annoyed. "Just, looking up at my sister. Sister, are there any different ghosts we have encountered so far?" Hearing this, Kochu Kanae couldn't help being silent. The ghosts that the sisters have encountered so far are all the same. Ghosts who are hungry, whether they are parents or brothers and sisters, will be killed and eaten. They cannot suppress their nature to become ghosts. The ghosts I have encountered so far, without exception, are all like this. Unconsciously, Kochu Kanae looked at the ghost in front who was wearing a bamboo hat and holding a human girl by the hand, hiding in the crowd. Will this ghost do the same? Su-mu took Kanao's little hand through the crowd, and could vaguely feel the breath of the Kochu sisters following closely behind. Obviously, it was impossible to get rid of them. Although unwilling to face the Kochu sisters. But in the end, you have to be prepared. But he had one more thing to do before facing the Kochu sisters. Thinking through the crowd, take Kanao's hand into a restaurant and find a seat by the window. The two figures of the Kochu sisters followed closely and sat down on nearby seats. Kochu Kanae's purple eyes looked curiously at the boy in the bamboo hat who was lighting food there. This ghost is different, even greedy for food in the world. For ghosts, isn't human blood the most delicious thing, and human flesh the most valuable thing? Did you find them, so you did it on purpose for them to see? Kochu Kanae couldn't help thinking, and became more and more curious about this ghost. A large table of food was served quickly. As the food was served, the chestnut blossoms fell. Kanao's pair of purple eyes stared at the food on the table. For a girl who was abused by her parents and lived in a slum since childhood, being able to have a full stomach is already a desire. When have you seen so much food in front of you? Now, with so much food in front of him, Kanao can't take his eyes off. Perhaps, the tragic childhood memories made Lihuluo. Kanao gradually closed off the human feelings, but the human instincts were not curbed. Let's eat. Su-mu looked tenderly at Kanao who was staring at the food. He could feel the chestnut blossoms falling. Kanao was so eager for food that he even wanted to reach out to get it, but maybe some tragic experience left a shadow and made her dare not reach out. Get out and get the food. Maybe, that's the reason why my father stretched out his hand to grab the rice while eating, right? Eat, no one will bully you. Su-mu spoke softly again. It seems that Su-mu's gentle words let Kanao slowly let go of his heart, and his thin hands carefully grabbed the chicken legs on the table. Seeing this, Su-mu also showed a smile. He was very happy to see Kanao slowly transforming from a marionette state to a human being. But, immediately, he froze. Kanao's little hand holding the drumstick stretched out in front of him. Apparently, the drumstick was handed to her by Kanao. He obviously felt that Kanao was so hungry for food, but he handed him the best food. Living in the world of slums, chicken legs are definitely something that Kanao can only dream of eating. But now, Kanao handed him what she thought was the best in a simple world. There is a feeling of being filled with warmth in my heart. Stretched out his hand and patted Kanao's little head. I'm not hungry, you eat. As he spoke, he gently wiped off Kanao's oily hands with the silk scarf prepared by the hotel, and then sent her back with her little hand. It's delicious, and the fat ones look better. He tilted his head and smiled. You are my fiancé. If you become ugly, I don't want you. It seems that the words, I don't want you anymore, have an extremely terrifying magic power, which made Kanao's body tremble suddenly, and a touch of fear appeared in his eyes that had been numb all the time. With his sleeves. Kanao's sudden change, especially when he felt Kanao's little hand tightly clutching his sleeve, Su-mu secretly blamed himself. She should have said something wrong just now. This made him blame himself. He shouldn't have said such a thing. Hey, I'll never leave you. He stretched out his hand and patted Kanao's head lightly, assuring Kanao. With the stroking of the palm, Kanao's emotions gradually eased. I'm starting to eat, it won't taste good when it's cold. He didn't speak until Kanao's emotions had completely stabilized. Seemingly hungry for food, or because of the fear of the word, I don't want you, just now, Kanao began to eat food crazily. He couldn't help but smile when he saw the girl's bulging mouth like a little hamster, still grabbing the food on the table. Eat slowly and drink some water. He put the water glass next to Kanao, and opened his mouth gently. Slightly. The girl burped all of a sudden. Hearing this, he couldn't help laughing, and on the seat next to the table. Kochu Kanae watched this scene quietly, with a pair of beautiful purple eyes showing some thought. Next to her was the shorter sister, Shishin, with short hair. Her serious and pretty face showed some doubts. This is a very strange ghost. Wait until the chestnut flowers fall. After Kanao is completely full. He just waved. The shop waiter immediately trotted over. My lord, it's 500 yen sincerity. He paid 1,000 yen. When he killed Ichiro Amaya before, he collected a lot of money from Ichiro's body, and he is not short of money now. The waiter in the shop took the money and said, "I'll ask the shopkeeper to look for the money right now, my lord will wait a moment." However, just as the waiter was about to leave, Suemu's hand grabbed his shoulder. The waiter in the shop looked at Suemu with some doubts, not knowing what was going on with the boy in the bamboo hat. "I have something to leave, and my companion will stay here for a while. Please take care of it, and I don't need to change the rest of the money." He looked at the waiter's calm opening. The waiter was taken aback for a moment, but immediately understood what Suemu meant, and couldn't help but be ecstatic. "You must know that 500 yen is equivalent to the money he can get by working here for a month. Now, he only needs to take care of this young lady to get it, so he is naturally very happy." Although the young lady looked a bit dazed, he only needed to take care of her for a while. "My lord, please rest assured, before my lord returns, I will definitely." The waiter hurriedly patted his chest to assure. Suemu nodded, didn't say anything, but squatted down in front of Lihualuo Kanao, gently picked up the rice grains near Kanao's mouth with her fingers, and put them in her mouth to swallow. Lihualuo. Kanao seems to feel something, the beautiful purple eyes are always looking at him, and the little hand is unconsciously grabbing his sleeve. He smiled, and then patted Kanao on the head. "I have something to do, you have to stay here obediently and wait for me to come back. If I can't come back in a short time, you will follow those two sisters first?" As he spoke, he pointed his finger at the pair of Kochu sisters. Sister Kochu, who had been paying close attention to the movement at Suemu's table, stood up abruptly following Suemu's voice. "Sure enough, you found us." Kochu Shinobu pursed his lips, his pretty face was full of seriousness, and one hand was also on the scabbard of his Nichiren blades. Suemu ignored Kochu Shinobu, but looked at Kanao gently. "Can it be done? This is the first time my husband told you about it?" Kanao's small mouth opened rarely, but it seemed that he hadn't spoken for a long time, or he had lost the expression of human emotions, but he didn't make any sound. Suemu rubbed the black hair on Kanao's little head distress-edly, and then he stood up. The golden eyes under the bamboo hat looked at the Kochu sisters who were also staring at him. Without saying anything, he turned around and left, and walked outside the hotel. The Kochu sisters naturally kept up without saying a word. If it weren't for the fact that this place is in a downtown area, and that his sister has been preventing it, Kochu Shinobu would have done something to this ghost long ago. The waiter in the shop glanced suspiciously at the Kochu sisters who followed the young man in a bamboo hat, but he didn't care. What he has to do now is to take good care of Kanao before the adults leave. After all, the adults gave a tip of 500 yen. Dark alley quiet environment. A young man wearing a black hat hurried past with extremely fast steps. Following closely were two girls in the uniform of the Ghost Slayer squad. The slight wind blows, blowing the emerald green Kochu hairpins on both sides of the girl's hair, like a dancing Kochu. The end of the alley. The boy in the black hat stopped. "Turn around, look at the Kochu sisters who are following." Kochu Kanae. A long-awaited daimyo. Kochu Kanae's exquisite little face showed a touch of astonishment. Apparently he didn't expect this ghost to know him, and unconsciously wanted to ask something. Kochu Shinobu next to him said impatiently, "Sister, what are you talking about with a ghost? Before my sister was worried that she might accidentally hurt the people around her, but now she doesn't have to worry about it." There was a hint of anger and hatred in the girl's purple eyes. She will never forget the scene where her parents were killed by ghosts in front of her eyes. She hates ghosts. Hate all ghosts breathe, flow. Bug breath, it is her original breath, which is not yet complete, and is a derivative of her sister's breath of flowers. It is one of the most important means for the ghost killing team to fight against ghosts and ghosts by allowing people to have ghost-like physical fitness in a short period of time. Kochu Shinobu pressed his hand on the scabbard, barely waiting for his sister's order, and impatiently stepped forward. The alley was silent, only the sound of a girl's footsteps coming. Hum. Sound like insects. Kochu Shinobu's hand on the scabbard at his waist slams out. The figure of the girl is like a dancing Kochu, with a graceful posture and fatal lethality in her beauty. The young man under the bamboo hat lowered his eyes, and his hand was only lightly pressing the hilt of the sword at his waist. Howling wind hum, accompanied by the slight sound of insects. The girl's sword was already in front of her. At the same moment, his forehead also unsheathed his sword. A fiery red horse cut out along with it. Choke. There was a metallic crashing sound in the air. Two swords intersect. The blades collided with each other, bursting out golden sparks, and the faces of the two were also approaching each other at this moment. A pair of golden eyes, a pair of purple eyes, the two eyes are staring together at this moment. Damn it. There was a cold killing intent on the girl's serious and delicate face. Especially when his pair of purple eyes fell on Nichiren blades in Suemu's hand, the coldness in his purple eyes became a little bit more, and at the same time, a little more sad. As we all know, Nichiren blades are the standard equipment for members of the ghost killing team. An extra Nichiren blades in the hands of this ghost means the death of a companion. The young man under the bamboo hat was silent, he didn't say anything, but the hand holding the hilt of the sword suddenly exerted force. Boom. In just a split second, Kochu Shinobu felt a huge force coming from the Nichiren blades he was holding tightly in his palm. She, who was already weak, couldn't resist this powerful force at all, and she immediately flew backwards. Suemu clenched the hilt of the sword, squatted down, and lowered her body. Boom, feet slammed into the ground. The whole person followed like a cannonball, and the Nichiren blades in his hand were also cut out, as if there was no thought of pity at all. I just want to kill each other with a knife, damn it. Kochu Shinobu bit his red lips with his white and tender teeth. Facing the following ghosts, he could only hold the hilt of his sword tightly. The white scabbard was tightly held in his hand, and his breathing was mobilized at this moment. Insect breath dance of butterflies. Teasing, the slender figure flying upside down suddenly began to change, moving gracefully like Kochu, dodging Suemu's fatal strike. At the same time, in the blink of an eye, the Nichiren blades in the girl's hand carried out 5 consecutive thrusts. The speed was extremely fast, and almost every thorn pierced the skin of the young man in front of him. However, Suemu was not moved at all. The Nichiren blades in his hand continued to open and close, and cut towards Kochu Shinobu. The swords of the two met again in the air. It's just that Kochu Shinobu, who is weak, is at a disadvantage. Suemu doesn't know much about swordsmanship, and his attack method is simple and rude. Moreover, the most important thing is that he can only attack but not defend, so he was injured in many places by Kochu Shinobu's guerrilla attack in a short fight. Sometimes, even in the face of a situation where both sides suffer, his golden eyes will not even blink. After this attack, the forced Kochu Shinobu could only back away again and again, even more secretly crying in his heart. Although the current Kochu Shinobu has made great achievements in medicine and pharmacy, it is still in the experimental stage to extract toxins from wisteria flowers that are specialized for killing ghosts. Therefore, at this moment, the Nichiren blades in Kochu Shinobu's hands are not smeared with wisteria poison that can specifically kill ghosts. Therefore, intelligence is simply stabbing the ghost's skin with Nichiren blades to cause damage. But with the body of a ghost, just ordinary minor injuries are not injuries at all. On the contrary, Kochu Shinobu was short of breath under Suemu's continuous super powerful attack, and was forced into a panic. Another sword blocked the ghost's Nichiren blades with difficulty, but the huge strength still surged along the blade, causing Kochu Shinobu's breath to surge, and his chest was also extremely stuffy. Stepping back quickly, Kochu Shinobu skillfully relieved the huge strength while preparing to move. However, this time, the boy under the bamboo hat suddenly stretched out a hand and grabbed her directly. Go to hell. Suppressing the overwhelming anger in her chest, the Nichiren blades in her hand slashed at the ghostly hand protruding from her face. I thought the ghost would retreat, but found that it had no intention of retreating at all. Choke. Nichiren blades slashed at the hands of the ghosts, but instead of cutting it off as expected, there was a burst of hard resistance. What? Kochu Shinobu stared, his purple eyes looked over unconsciously, only to find that the ghost hand was already glowing with a golden metal plate, and the place that Nichiren blades had just cut didn't even cause any damage. And in Kochu Shinobu's dazed kung fu, the ghost hand had already grabbed her face. Ruined, the girl thought sadly. She had been working hard all the time, but she still found that she had too many deficiencies. Although she was already prepared to be killed by the ghost, she never thought that death would approach so soon. Choke. The metal-like sound sounded again, and a Nichiren blades lay in front of the ghost hand, blocking the blow of the ghost hand. But Kochu Kanao, who had been on the sidelines, made the shot. Call. Kochu Shinobu also took advantage of this opportunity. His figure hastily stepped back, and finally landed lightly behind his sister. The haori she was wearing also flew with the wind. Under the moonlight, the girl's messy short black hair was blown by the wind, and her panting and pretty face was staring at the ghost in the black hat in front of her. Sister, this ghost is very powerful. Kochu Shinobu bit his red lips with white teeth and said, His beautiful eyes were full of fear. Kochu Kanae didn't speak, and Bai Nen's hand just held the hilt of the sword quietly. From the beginning to the end, the other Nichiren blades were not out of the sheath. Even if the younger sister just blocked the attack of the ghost, she used the sheath. The young man under the bamboo hat withdrew his hand, flipped over several times, and landed on a courtyard wall. The gentle moonlight shines on the boy's figure. He looked at Kochu Kanae silently. "You don't seem to mean to kill me?" He tilted his head and looked at the gentle girl. As described in the anime, this is an excessively gentle woman. Kocho Kanae. Soft moonlight falls, imprinted on the girl's delicate face. The girl's pink and purple eyes are slightly squinted, and as the wind blows, the girl's black hair is blown up with the wind, and the emerald green Kochu hairpin on her head flaps her wings with the wind. It's like a real Kochu resting on the girl's hair. "How did you get the Nichiren blades in your hand?" The girl spoke softly. Even when talking to ghosts, Kochu Kanae's voice is still so gentle, like the warm spring sun. "Sister, do you still need to ask?" Behind him, Kochu Shinobu squinted his pupils, and a handful of Nichiren blades appeared in the hands of a ghost, the significance of which is self-evident. "I picked it up." The boy under the bamboo hat spoke calmly. "Lie." Kochu Shinobu glared angrily at the ghost opposite. Although she couldn't get a glimpse of the ghost's appearance due to the cover of the bamboo hat, she could already imagine the disgusting appearance of this ghost in her mind. Ghosts are disgusting, without exception. Kochu Kanae was also slightly silent, and after a long time, he said in a very gentle voice, "Nichiren blades, for the members of the Demon Slayer squad, are often more precious than life." Simple words, the meaning is very simple. Nichiren blades, it is not so easy to pick up. Su Mu shrugged his shoulders, and he also knew that even if he tried to explain, it would be useless. Because he is a ghost now. To make a member of the ghost-killing team believe the ghost's words is undoubtedly a fairy tale. "I'll give you another chance to explain now." Kochu Kanae looked at the boy in front of him with pity. Although it has now become a poor creature like a ghost, ghosts were once human. It is really sad for a ghost to lose himself. Su Mu was silent, raised her head, and narrowed her golden eyes under the bamboo hat. "Are you going to make a move?" he asked softly. Kochu Kanae caresses his own Nichiren blades gently. Kochu Kanae's Nichiren blades are very special. The jaw is orange, four-leaf clover shaped, the handle is emerald green, and the blade is peach-colored. "Can I save you?" She shook her head. "What I can do now is to free you from the cause and effect of sorrow." White fingers caressed the blade of the sword, and there was a faint and joyful sound of the sword. Feel the breath. The soft body tensed at this moment. Sensing the situation of Kochu Kanae, Su Mu's face is also extremely dignified. Style Kochu Kanae, it is the pillar that can fight against the second doma of the winding. Although his strength is not as good as that of the first string, it is not that he can be hostile now. He could feel the terrifying aura emanating from the soft-looking girl opposite. Next moment Kochu Kanae moved. Accompanied by its movements, the surrounding flowers seemed to bloom at this moment. His eyes widened in an instant, staring at the other party firmly. Next moment the figure of Kochu Kanae had already appeared in front of him, and the cold sword light slashed towards him. Su Mu gritted her teeth. Swing the knife violently. The fiery red horse is cut out. It was empty, nothing was cut, and the sword that the opponent cut over seemed to have never appeared. However, the next moment, the beautiful sword light flashed on his cheeks again. So fast there is no way to react at all. It was obvious that there was not the moment before, and it appeared so abruptly the next moment. All he could do was barely move his head. Click. Accompanied by a crisp sound, the bamboo hat on his head was cut off instantly, and the sharp blade brushed past his cheek. Pain first appeared in the cheeks, then in the shoulders. Crack. The sharp blade cut through the flesh and blood of the shoulder, and finally stopped at the hard bone. It was a golden hand pressing tightly against the blade, preventing Kochu Kanae's Nichiren blades from removing his arm. The girl's pretty brows frowned slightly. The hand holding the hilt of the sword was hard, trying to withdraw it, but Su Mu's ghostly hand was firmly grasping the sharp blade, with no intention of letting go. From the very beginning, he knew that he couldn't match Kochu Kanae in his own right. If you let the opponent use Nichiren blades, you are afraid that without a few moves, your head will be chopped off by other Nichiren blades. So, he waited, waiting for the other Nichiren blades to strike at his head. The weakness of ghosts must be kept in mind for every member of the ghost killing team, and the method of killing ghosts must be understood from the moment they join the ghost killing team. One of the easiest ways to kill an Oni is to chop off its head with Nichiren blades. Obviously he has been waiting for this scene. It finally came, and at the same time avoided the vital parts of the head dangerously, and was not killed by one blow. There are only a few ways to kill ghosts. Nichiren blades are one, wisteria is one, and sunlight is one. As long as Nichiren blades are under control, Kochu Kanae wants to kill him. It's not that simple. A smart ghost, Kochu Kanae's purple eyes stared at the young man. His gentle face carried a touch of coolness. But if you think that you can beat me like this, you are completely wrong. The girl spoke softly, and kicked out her long legs like a whirlwind. Powerful energy poured into his body like a cannonball. The boy could only let out a scream, and he was kicked out of the body. His body collided with the wall of the alley, knocking down the wall in an instant. With more energy remaining, he continued to hit the ground. Boom. A powerful muffled sound followed, accompanied by smoke rising. The slender and tall figure of Kochu Kanae stands quietly on a wall, and with the reflection of the moonlight, the girl's posture is like an elf. Ahem. As the dust and mist cleared, Su-Mu stood up from the ground in embarrassment. The powerful anti-strike ability brought by the ghost's body, as well as the strong self-healing ability, prevent him from losing his fighting power all at once. Standing up with difficulty, he pulled out his hand on his shoulder, and he also pulled out the sword stuck on his shoulder. He looked up and looked at the woman standing on the wall like an elf under the moonlit night. He laughed. Kochu Kanae frowned. You don't think that if you take away my sword, there's nothing I can do to you? Su-Mu didn't speak, but just wiped her lips with her hand, wiping off the bright red blood on her lips. As we all know, there are only a few ways to kill ghosts, and Nichiren blades is one of them. He spoke softly. Sister, there's more than one Nichiren blades, brat. Another cold voice came out, but it was Kochu Shinobu who spoke. The girl looked at the ghost mockingly. And my Nichiren blades. Kochu Shinobu sneered, then looked at his sister, and slammed the sword in his hand. Sister, take the sword. Kochu Kanae took the sister's sword, looking at Su-Mu with pink and purple eyes pitifully. Hey, the boy suddenly sneered. When dealing with ghosts, you can never be too careful. Kochu Kanae, you are too careless, it's too gentle. Kochu Kanae frowned slightly. In this situation, the other party is educating himself? Open your lips. Want to open, but the words didn't come out. Her complexion changed drastically. From the very beginning, Su-Mu was actually ready to be killed. But he did not give up a chance of survival. With his current strength, he is about 5-5 with Kochu Shinobu, but compared with Kanae, who has become a style, he is completely incomparable. If Kochu Kanae had paid him serious attention from the very beginning, he would be beheaded by his Nichiren blades if he didn't take 3 moves, and he wouldn't have any chance at all. But now he saw a glimmer of opportunity. And this chance is Kochu Kanae's younger sister Kochu Shinobu. In fact, his eyes fell on Kochu Shinobu from the very beginning, especially Kochu Shinobu attacked him impulsively at first. At that time, he wanted to do it. However, right away, he found that Kochu Kanae cared deeply about his sister, and when Kochu Shinobu fought him, his palm never left the hilt of his sword. At that time, it was impossible for him to really do anything to Kochu Shinobu. But now it's different. Kochu Kanae just kicked him in the air, which kicked him out, but at the same time, brought him closer to Kochu Shinobu. Moreover, since the two fought just now, he deliberately moved to a farther place. Now, Kochu Kanae is far away from Kochu Shinobu. What's more, the current Kochu Shinobu doesn't even have the weapon Nichiren blades. So, when he bowed, bent down, stared at Kochu Kanae with a pair of golden eyes, prepared to attack, and said, You can't be too careful when dealing with ghosts, Kochu Kanae, you are too careless and too gentle up. When Kochu Kanae was on guard against him secretly and focused all his attention on him to prevent him from using any special attack method, his whole body rushed towards Kochu Shinobu like a cannonball. Hateful. Seeing the ghost rushing towards him and using himself as a breakthrough, Kochu Shinobu didn't lose his mind while being angry, and the whole person floated backward like Kochu. Her purple eyes stared at the approaching ghost, with anger and sarcasm in her eyes. Her strength was originally between 5 and 5 with the opponent, but because of being a human, she was much weaker in strength, plus the ghost's special vulgarity. Therefore, in the previous confrontation, the opponent caught this weakness and made a breakthrough. But if she is given another chance to do it again, Kochu Shinobu feels that he is still sure to win the opponent. After all, his speed is faster than the opponent's. But now, this little ghost actually used her as a breakthrough point. He really didn't know how to live or die. When his sister arrived, he would be able to kill this nasty ghost right away. Only right off the bat, Kochu Shinobu paid for his carelessness. Boom, accompanied by 3 consecutive gunshots. Up. Middle. Down, 3 bullets, each aimed at the head, chest and leg wrists, made Kochu Shinobu's face change drastically. With his extraordinary speed, Kochu Shinobu dodged the deadly lead bullets to the head and chest, but could not dodge the bullets to the ankles. As the gunshots ended, Kochu Shinobu, who was moving at high speed, almost staggered and fell to the ground. Although Kochu Shinobu has not completely lost the ability to resist at this moment, the shadow of the ghost is also approaching him in an instant. It was this change that made Kochu Kanae's complexion change drastically. Although he reacted immediately and ran towards his sister, he could only watch helplessly as his sister was shot and fell to the ground. For the first time, the killing intent permeated this young girl. She paid the price for her pity for this ghost. She should listen to her sister, otherwise, her sister would not. She had to get to her sister before the ghost did something to her. Bang bang bang. The young man held the tip of the Nichiren blades in his mouth, and drew his hands to his waist again. He held 2 muskets that had already been loaded in his palms. Fingertip pulled trigger, just simple movements. Bullets faster and more lethal than arrows roared towards Kochu Kanae. Firearms may be inferior in dealing with ghosts, but they are a great killer in terms of dealing with people. They are stronger than styles, like Kochu Kanae, and they dare not let lead bullets hit their bodies easily. After all, people don't have the immortality of ghosts. If they are really hit at a fatal part, they will really die. Clang clang. There was a burst of metal like crit in the air. Kochu Kanae wielded his sister's Nichiren blades and waved a silver-white horse. Ding ding ding. Bullets were blocked by him with Nichiren blades, without exception. However, Su-Mu never pinned his hopes on firearms from the very beginning, nor did he think that firearms can do anything to a pillar master like Kochu Kanae. Time will do. And in the instant of time he was fighting for, he was completely close to Kochu Shinobu, who was shot and fell to the ground. The golden Oni hand grabbed Kochu Shinobu without hesitation. Kochu Shinobu, who was shot in the leg and wrist, did not lose his ability to resist, and hurriedly swung his fist. However, Kochu Shinobu's strength was too weak, and it was useless to hit his ghost body with fists, and almost between breaths, both of Kochu Shinobu's hands were held down by him. At the same time, as soon as he pressed his palm, Kochu Shinobu fell into his arms. Kochu Shinobu struggled desperately, but Su-Mu's hands were like iron tongs, and the weak Kochu Shinobu couldn't break free at all. Hateful. Kochu Shinobu felt ashamed and angry when he felt that the ghost was hugging him from behind, and his 2 hands were also grabbed by the ghost's hands and pressed against his chest, and he couldn't move at all. At this time, Kochu Kanae also rushed over. Just about to start, but when he saw the black hole of the musket pressed against his sister's head, Kochu Kanae had to stop stiffly. Let go of my sister. Let go of my sister. The girl's pink and purple eyes were staring at him firmly at this moment, and that originally gentle and delicate face was also full of evil spirit at this moment. Su-Mu didn't care about Kochu Kanae's evil spirit at this moment, but said in very plain words. From the very beginning, you were merciful. He said quietly. This gave me a chance. You are too gentle. If it is an ordinary life, such gentleness is commendable, but, as a ghost-slaying team, a professional ghost hunter, excessive gentleness will destroy you one day. Just like today. If it keeps like this, you shouldn't be hunting ghosts. Kochu Kanae frowned. At this time, this ghost said this to mock her? Let go of me, you disgusting ghost. I'm so disgusted that I want to vomit when I'm close to you. Kochu Shinobu struggled crazily, but Su-Mu's hands were like iron pincers controlling her. Strength is her weak point, and she can't break free from the shackles of ghosts. He has great strength because of the struggle. The other party pressed her chest, and the hands controlling her hands became tighter. Make her breathe more quickly. She still struggled, but immediately, there was a sharp pain in her head, and then she felt that the sky was full of little stars, and then she didn't know anything. Younger sister, Kochu Kanae couldn't help exclaiming, and stepped forward unconsciously, but when he saw that the black muzzle of the ghost hit his sister's head again, he could only take back his steps. Younger sister, she looked worriedly at her younger sister who was beaten unconscious by a ghost. Su-Mu looked at Kochu Kanae calmly. You should remember today's lesson. The next time you meet a ghost, don't hold on to your poor, pity ghost thoughts. Kochu Kanae pursed her lips and did not speak. Once, Hamejima Kiyome, the rock pillar, who rescued their sisters from the ghost, once said similar words to her. I vaguely remember Himejima Kiyome asking her like this. You want to save the ghost who killed your parents? Is that what you said? At that time, Himejima Kiyome contained deep anger. At that time, my answer was, ghosts are sad creatures. They used to be humans, but now they eat humans. They are afraid of the beautiful sunrise. If possible, she hopes that she can free the ghosts from the cause and effect of sadness. I want to protect the happiness of someone who hasn't been destroyed. Just like you did to us. Just like you protect me, I want to protect someone important. In this way, I think I can stop the chain sad. Faced with his own answer, Himejima Kiyome just asked lightly, in the end, did I and my sister die? She was silent then. It took a long time before she raised her head and answered Himejima Kiyome. I have already realized it. It's just that I didn't expect this realization to come so quickly. From the moment she joined the ghost killing squad, she had already realized this. But my sister is different. My sister shouldn't just die like this, she should get the happiness of an ordinary girl until she dies at the end of her life. Not now. Let go of my sister. She gritted her teeth, raised her hand slightly, and held the hilt of Nichiren blades exuding the coldness of an iceman. If you dare to hurt my little sister's hair, you are dead. She gritted her teeth, full of evil spirit. Her pink and purple eyes contained extremely strong evil spirit. Even if I chase you to Tianya Cape, I will cut off your head with my own hands, if you dare to hurt my sister. Facing the threat of Kochu Kanae's words, Sumu was unmoved. If language was useful, the world would not have so many hoarse roars. Now. I am asking you to do something, he said softly, if you care about your sister. Then. Now, please use your own sword hilt to knock yourself unconscious? Did you think I would do that? Kochu Kanae looked at the ghost with sarcasm at the corner of his mouth. You think I will clumsily knock myself unconscious, and then be killed by you unconsciously? The result of this is that not only will I die, but my sister will also be unable to escape from you, Palm. Do you think I'm so stupid? Kochu Kanae glared at the ghost annoyed. Sumu shrugged his shoulders and looked at Kochu Kanae firmly. No, you are just that stupid. You. Kochu Kanae only felt an invisible anger filling his chest, and his pretty face was also turning red because of anger at this moment. She, who was already delicate and pretty, exuded a more charming charm at this moment. Right now, the choice is simple, or knock yourself out. Or, now I kill your sister first, and then you kill me in anger? He said softly. The sharp blade of Nichiren blades stuck to Kochu Shinobu's fair neck. A slight red mark appeared on that fair neck, faintly bloodshot. You. Kochu Kanae watched all this with gritted teeth, but when he saw the trace of blood on his sister's neck, he lost his composure already. Although, it is so ridiculous to believe a ghost's words. But at the moment worried about her sister, she seemed to have no choice but to believe it. If you hurt my sister's hair, I'll never let you go even if I'm a ghost. Boom. She could only say such a sentence bitterly, and then clumsily hit herself on the back of the head with the handle of the knife. The soft body fell to the ground at this moment. Sumu held Kochu Shinobu, who was knocked unconscious by himself, and looked at Kochu Kanae, who was also unconscious in the distance. Suddenly have a weird feeling, is this the so-called sisterhood? Although, he just said that Kochu Kanae is stupid. But, in fact, Kochu Kanae is still very smart. At least, there are still small tricks like pretending to be comatose. Only pretending to be unprofessional, and not exposing the other party is simply insulting one's IQ. Front. The girl lying in the corpse should at least pretend to be comatose. The most basic thing is that you have to control your eyelashes not to blink. Although, it was a very slight blink, but you think I am the same as you? Stupid, easy to cheat? Of course, your eyelashes are beautiful. Sumu hugged Kochu Shinobu, who was unconscious, and looked at Kochu Kanae, who was lying in front of him speechlessly. You. Kochu Kanae sat up annoyed, a pair of pink and purple eyes filled with intense anger. Never such a moment, such a disgusting ghost. Although this ghost is not as ugly as other ghosts, it looks very delicate, especially the pair of ghost horns are even more cute. But this ghost is really, really annoying. Now, really knock yourself out. Sumu looked at Kochu Kanae calmly. Don't play tricks in front of me, because I hold your sister's life in my hands. You're playing tricks on your sister's life with your little tricks. He looked at Kochu Kanae calmly. At this moment, he completely grasped the lifeline of this woman. Please, please, don't hurt my sister. Kochu Kanae lowered his head and could only beg helplessly. I really can't lose my sister. Seeing the girl pleading sadly to herself, Su-mu really felt that she was the kind of super scumbag who abandoned her wife and daughter, and she felt like letting go of sister Kochu Kanae immediately. But this feeling just flashed in his mind and was swept away by his mind. What is certain is that as long as she relaxes a little, or if Kochu Kanae finds a chance, this powerful girl will definitely cut off her head immediately. For a gentle girl like Kochu Kanae, she cares most about her sister. The most intolerable thing is that his sister is hurt. Go ahead, don't challenge my patience, he opened his mouth lightly. Kochu Kanae looked helplessly at this cold-blooded ghost, but facing the situation before her, she didn't have much choice. Although, once he knocks himself out, with the characteristics of a ghost, he will definitely not let him go. After killing himself, not only will he die, but his sister may also die. But if he didn't knock himself unconscious, his sister would die immediately. She basically has no choice, and what if, after killing her and eating her, the ghost is full and doesn't eat her sister anymore? I beg you. Kochu Kanae looked at Su-mu pleadingly. As if confirming the other party's entreaties, Su-mu promised very seriously. As long as you knock yourself unconscious, I will not hurt your sister. Although it is so ridiculous to believe in a ghost. Since the history of the ghost killing team, people who believe in ghosts have never had a good end. But at this moment, Kochu Kanae can only choose this way. Boom. There was a muffled sound, and this time, Kochu Kanae completely fell to the ground, beating himself unconscious. Looking at Kochu Kanae who really passed out, Su-mu couldn't help but shook his head. In the world, how could there be such a stupid woman? No wonder she was later killed by Doma, the first string in 12 Kazuki. Fortunately, this woman met her and other ghosts today, and she would never let go of the opportunity to devour the woman in front of her. Shook his head although becoming a ghost. But he will not be that disgusting ghost who devours human flesh. Holding Kochu Shinobu between his arms, Su-mu found the black hat that had been dropped earlier. Gently put on the head. Turning his head, he looked at the girl who was still lying there upright, and cursed unconsciously. This woman is quite stupid. But, still cute.